Looks like we both didn't go all in for the beard.
Dude, I totally forgot. I got it cut last week.
If I had been able to do it for like a whole month, it would have been 4 years strong worthy.
All right, 4 years strong. A good old Massachusetts band, East Coast. That's where my dad is from. I was introduced to 4 years strong through Tyler, the guitarist in my band. For his 16th birthday, he got Rise or Die Trying, and he was so into them. But then I didn't listen to them until summer. It was summer going into sophomore year. I got each one of their albums and like listened to it from the library until I knew it front to back, and then I would get the next one chronologically. It was kind of a fun way to go through them.
Yeah, so the way I was introduced to them was actually I had a buddy of mine, kind of a acquaintance from high school, and he was the person who put me on to like Me Without You and a lot of other tooth and nail bands. I remember one time I was at hanging like at some sort of thing at his house, and we were like in his car so he could show me this song, and me and like somebody else, and it was Heroes Get Remembered, Legends Never Die, and that wasn't really the kind of music I was into at that point. But like it was very memorable, like especially the part. If you've heard it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And it was like that point, like okay, yeah, this band is doing something kind of unique and different. Now I didn't really think of them for a while after that, and then I think it was probably like you and Zach listened to them in college, and so that's how they kind of got on my radar.
Zach was a huge fan. Yeah.
Yep. Started listening to them. And then went to I saw them at Warped Tour, which they were the highlight of that.
I've seen them at Warped. Like I feel like they were just every summer they're like, all right, let's do Warped again. I looked it up before we did this. I've seen them 9 times live.
Wow. I've only seen them 3. Yeah,
Man,
3.
I guess
times.
we know who's 33% as good of a fan.
Yeah.
They were, especially when it was the Rise or Die Trying era, it was like I was coming from a very pop punk background at the time, and it was not that this was a lot heavier, but it was my introduction to like double bass pedal in this style of music. So like more energetic in that way. It just opened up different song writing and interesting stylistically, I guess. All right, so let's jump in with It's Our Time. And on Open Your Eyes Records. I wonder where they are now. And
Good question.
It's fine. It's all right. It's obviously amateurs recording. Felt like it was a fresh blend of pop punk with some easy core elements, not unlike some Newfound Glory, or like a mini version of A Day to Remember, right? But not obviously not as screamy. Mixed bag overall. I think it'd be a lot stronger as just an EP. They've already put out a couple EPs before this. That's kind of my take on it. Obviously, I have it as number 1 to start.
Yep. I really like this one. The kind of the points of comparison, I saw this band on their first 2 albums, and probably I didn't listen to all of like the demos before that, but to me they really sound like they want to be Taking Back Sunday, all the way to like the dueling vocals, and they kind of give me that. I don't know. There are a few bands, mainly Taking Back Sunday, but they had like the Daddy's Money core sound, where they're kind of emo-ish, but they don't have the kind of like super dirty, raw like My Chemical Romance or AFI kind of thing. And a lot of the lyrics are kind of about relationship drama, and the lyrics are a little bit pretentious, but in kind of this like way that I kind of find charming because of the amateurishness. So it kind of reminded me of that, and then it reminded me a little bit of some other kind of bands in the post-hardcore thing. They don't seem to be going really strong on like the breakdown kind of the core like we would know them, and I think it's, there are a few kind of breakdown chuggy parts, but for a lot of the post-hardcore bands of that time that I think they were drawing from, that wasn't that uncommon to have some kind of heavier bits with still clean singing in them. So we don't find them really like getting into their style. I like the album. It's probably out of all of like the very awkward first albums that we've listened to, it might be my favorite. So of that, or maybe tied with, if we're counting All Killer No Filler, that's probably ahead. But I like it, but it definitely does feel like kind of an artifact of its time, where if you're not already into that kind of music enough to where you want to listen to kind of a rough around the edges demo, you might not want to be into it. But I would listen to it on its own, even if it weren't like it didn't have 4 Years Strong.
Wow, that's impressive. I would say for me the standouts were Go Long Dad, Easier to Wait and See, which was cool. They had like a female singer on there. I didn't remember that.
That's right.
And then I really like Baseball Bats and Boogeymen. That like tempo change breakdown is so good. I feel like from this summer session on, it's kind of boring until it puts you on. It's a nice closer. Did you get the 5-minute metal song at the end?
No,
I didn't know if you heard that. I think that. Oh, sorry, were you gonna say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say I pretty much agree with you on there. I was just gonna add I really liked Vash the Stampede at the end.
I think it's fun to hear their voices. They're so like young and pitchy, knowing what they become. I also think they're one of the oddest. Well, I don't know that many. I guess Blink is obviously my main drawing point, but like 2 vocalist bands, because unless you really know them well, I can't often identify at first listen who's singing Alan or Dan. I have to like clue in, which is like the opposite of Mark and Tom.
Yeah.
Who like are doing different things. I think the metal track at the end is like a fun look ahead at like at their interest, but also way too long. And I'm like, is this also included as a joke, or like you guys being sincere in this? It feels kind of odd. But anyways, that's all I got for this one.
And then you have like the hidden metalcore track in the end of 4 Years Strong's first album for a label, and then the next 2 albums have like actual metalcore in them. So I don't know, maybe it's a harbinger of things to come in both cases. So yeah, on to Rise or Die Trying.
Rise or Die Trying, super cool cover. This was a much bigger step up. It's much better production. I felt it was a natural progression stylistically. It was much more clever lyrically, I thought. But I don't really pay attention to lyrics, so maybe it's not. But more lyrics jump out at me. You know, when he's like talking about his attention span, but he forgets what we were talking about in the middle of the verse because he's already lost it. That sort of thing. And I thought it was I think it did a better job mixing the pop punk and the hardcore elements together. So it felt more cohesive to me. So many songs step out. Heroes obviously is one of their best. Catastrophe and Men Are From Mars, but are great. Maniac to me is always one of my favorite 4 Years Strong songs. I really love that one.
Yeah, so this one, I feel like this kind of represents like a natural progression for the band. It still has a lot of the we really want to be taking back Sunday elements to it. The lyrics are still feel like kind of centered on kind of relationship drama with a few kind of pretentious touches, which I like. But yeah, musically I feel like they're coming in more to their own. And the vibe I get from this, it's another Warped Tour analogy, but do you remember those, like, there'd be 1 or 2, like, small stages on Warped Tour? It'd be mostly, like, local bands, and then you have one, I think, like, 2014, it was, like, Chunk, No Captain Chunk, who was on one of those.
Yeah.
But it would be, like...
Either Breather played a really small one.
What's that?
It was a complete anecdote. It was either Breather played, like, the Battle of the Bands winning stand.
It was the same stand, because Mixtapes played that. I didn't see Chunk, No Captain Chunk, but this is probably what happened at their set too. But the vibe I get from this album is like you've got that really small stage, and you have this kind of unknown band start playing, and they start playing. And you're like, okay, this is really kind of interesting. Like more and more people show up, and as the album goes on, and like, you know, by analogy, the concert goes on, like people like really start getting into it, and like Heroes Get Remembered, Legends Never Die is like that point where it's like, oh wow, like this is something like. There's a ton of people at this small stage. This band is like going places, and then he hits that breakdown, and then everybody starts moshing. And that's what I think. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's kind of production's a little wimpy sounding sometimes, and I guess it's not bad.
It's a little digital.
What's that?
It's a little digital. I feel like the drums are like programmed.
I couldn't quite hear that, but now I'll never be able to unhear it. Thank you, Joey.
I'm not sure. It's like just comparatively to their later records, it just has like a more of a synthesized feel. I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So, but yeah, I think it's just a lot of good catchy stuff. I mean, my main criticism would just be, well, it's not as good as the next record, and it doesn't feel like they've found their sound as much as the next record. But that's not good.
And this, based on those words, this will be our first division. and I feel like this is a controversial one for me, but I'll put it in my number 2 slot, Enemy of the World, and I think I might be plagued from overhearing it, especially live. But for some reason, or maybe it's the re-recording of it that's put a worse taste in my mouth. But for some reason, it just doesn't hit as hard as Rise for me. But I do think it is obviously the natural progression toward their more raw, chaotic, energetic sound.
Mm-hmm.
It's solid. But like while I can, like if it's on, I'm frequently jamming it. I almost never seek it out. It's not my first go-to 4 Year Strong record. And again, that might be a symptom of I do like to listen to records front to back. And I'm just very tired of It Must Suck to Be 4 Year Strong right now, so I never want to start off with that. Yeah, but when I first was listening to it, I loved it. So maybe it's me.
Maybe
wasting time, obviously.
Sorry,
I was just listening to that before we called. I think the best run on the record is Find My Way Back, What the Hell is a Gigawatt, and One Step at a Time. Those 3 tracks for me are the best.
It feels like it's like the defining 4 Year Strong record for me. It's like, this is what 4 Year Strong is about. There are other records that feel like them kind of branching out some or trying to find their style, and this is like their stuff. What I like about it is it feels like you take a lot of kind of pop punky, a little bit post-hardcore, mall emo or whatever stuff, and they dial the intensity up to where it's where you really want it to be. Like, I was listening to this album on Spotify one time for this podcast, and then like it got to the end and it was started playing suggested songs, and it was like Reinventing Your Exit by Under Oath. And then I just keep thinking, like, man, this could be like way heavier. Why aren't they putting like, a double bass in like this part, like 4 Year Strong does? And that's what I feel like 4 Year Strong does really well here. It's like pop punk, but with like, everything turned up to 11. My favorite example of this is the pre-chorus on Find My Way Back, where he's like, I got the pressure building up inside my head, and you just have the drum go on there like relentlessly, and like, okay, this is what it's supposed to be like. If I have to offer any criticism of this album, which is hard because pretty much every song is a classic, there are no ballads, we've got a good mix of like really happy stuff and anthemic stuff and kind of angry stuff. My one criticism is a lot of it feels very like sing-songy in the melodies. Like at one point, Paul Revere's Midnight Ride, they literally have the in like the melody of the chorus, and a lot of it feels like this kind of like trite, almost like too sing-songy or poppy kind of vocal melodies. But I mean, other than that, yeah, I really like this album. I would say this is fairly close to peak 4 Year Strong for me.
Yeah, it is pretty good. I do also think the back half, like tracks 8 to 10, the 3 tracks before Enemy of the World, it starts to feel a little redundant for me. Like I could trim 2 of those at least, and it would be a tighter thing.
I've realized, I mean, I feel that way. I kind of always want to cut albums down, but especially for 4 Year Strong, as I was going through and just making my list of all the tracks so I could keep track of them, I realized on every album there was at least one track which was always like in the last back half of it that I could not remember at all. I was like, oh, this was on here? And it wasn't like, oh, there was a hidden gem. It was just like, oh, well, there's that song.
Yeah.
So I feel you on that.
I'll give a special shout out to One Step at a Time, which I feel like is their most sincere song today. It sounds like they lost somebody close to them. I don't know the story.
Yeah.
But that one's it's a good one. As far as, sometimes when bands dip into the sentimental, it can feel uncomfortable, but
yeah,
they stick with their sound. All right, I'm moving to a divisive record. I'm curious to hear what you think about this. In some way, shape, or form, 2011, in a lot of ways, tore the band apart. They very negative fan reaction, and they needed some time off. But I love it. I have it, hold your breath, it's my number 2 slot, above Enemy of the World. Because every time I return to this album, I listen to the whole thing. I really enjoy it. But I understand the sound. I mean, we've just moved on from the synths. We kicked Josh out. How would you characterize this?
So it feels to me like it still feels 4 Year Strong. This doesn't feel like a radical departure.
Yeah.
It's not like Fall Out Boy going from pop punk to just pop or something like that. We call it kind of like somewhere in between kind of post-hardcore and then kind of that radio hard rock. To me, it feels like them trying to be Shinedown or Breaking Benjamin or something there, and kind of have stuff that is similar in a vibe to that while still being 4 Year Strong. And I'll let you go. You go ahead and give your opinion of it.
I mean, all I want to say is I feel like the guitar work stands out here for me. I really like, songs like Stuck in the Middle have really grown on me, and I feel like that losing the synthesizer you needed to fill that space sonically, and I think that work really stands out. And the boys at this point have really grown into their mature, gruffy, snarly voices, and so they can belt those out. I'm surprised they can still hit these songs today. It just seems like the band is embarrassed by it. They don't often, other than Stuck in the Middle, they don't play anything from this record live, which is a shame, because I really love it. And Just Drive is like the lead single, I think is a great anthemic song. Heaven Wasn't Built to Hold Me. Even the little piano B ballad, which becomes a rock song at the end. Everywhere Through. I don't know. I love it.
Yeah. I would put this album like where you put Enemy of the World, where it's like, if I'm listening to it, I kind of enjoy it, but I wouldn't seek it out. And I was trying to figure out why, and I finally got it like yesterday. It was that there's this giant slog that, I like the first like 3 songs, and then when we start with Just Drive, all the way to the end, it's a bunch of songs where they're all like mid-tempo to slow, and most of them give me this very frustrated vibe. Like they're kind of minor key, but they're not really like angry, and they're not like melancholy and dramatic. And both like the kind of the plaintive melodies and the lyrics give me this just vibe of people who are frustrated and irritated. And maybe that's why they don't like the album. Maybe there was some personal stuff going on that influenced it, but it just feels like probably 1 or 2 of the songs would be okay. But when we have all these songs in a row, it starts to drag. And the other thing is, it does feel like this was a bid for like some mainstream radio play, because a lot of it gives me the vibe of like, stuff by like bands like Shinedown or Breaking Benjamin or Stained. The very first song, The Infected, like that's like the heaviest song on the album, but to me it sounds like a WWE entrance theme for like some like low card wrestler coming out there like So anyway, so it's just like, it feels like less than the sum of its parts, because so many of those parts feel samey and feel just kind of like depressing to me. And it's less heavy than the previous record too.
Well, it checks out, because I tend to like depressing music, so that
Well,
I hadn't considered the mid-tempo-ness of it all. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, I like a lot of depressing music. It feels like the wrong kind of depressing. Again, like, frustrated is the vibe I get from it. It's not like, walking through a graveyard on an overcast day wearing all black depressing. It's like, man, like, this dude in my life is screwing me over, or like, I'm not where I want to be in life depressing. And that's a different kind of vibe for me. So that's how I feel about this.
Yeah. All right, so then they come back from their hiatus, and we drop 4 Year Strong. Self-titled, meaning to me a rebirth of the band, and I really like it. I put it in my 3 slot. I feel like if I could sum it up in a sentence, it's a better Enemy of the World.
Yep, if I had to sum it up, it would be a slightly worse Enemy of the World.
Okay, that's fair. I think the anthems are more anthemic. It's more fun. But I remember driving to a wedding with Zach, and we listened to this album just as it came out. One song that jumps out to me, like I don't see any other people talking about it, but the final minute breakdown of The Sound of Your Heart gets me so pumped every time. I don't know how else to put it. I go crazy. I wish I could hear it live.
That's how I feel about that sort of breakdown in the beginning of the first song. Was it I Hold Myself in Contempt? I never thought that I'd be giving you up. And the guitars start chugging there, and it's totally unexpected. And that's what I liked about it. A lot of this, and then just a lot of the 4 Year Strong stuff. is that there's a lot of bits. They're not like a a prog band or something, but there's a lot of interesting guitar bits and kind of unexpected twists in their music, while still kind of fitting into kind of a pop mold. Yeah, it feels like kind of a return to form after Enemy of the World. We still but with kind of getting some of the lessons from the previous album. So we have a few more ballads or ballad-ish kind of songs that would be like Eating My Words is kind of anthemic. Wipe Yourself Off, Man, You're Dead is a bit of a ballad. Same with Sound of Your Heart. But not so much that I feel like it overwhelmed. Even those still have a bunch of heavy guitar on them. I really like Go Down in History and We All Float Down Here. I think it's just a good front to back record.
It's a good front to back experience.
Yeah,
it's really paced well.
Yeah, I'd say that, which I felt like the previous album wasn't. I feel the previous album was like, wow, some really energetic songs, and now we're down in the slow paced dumps. And this one is kind of like, we have some ballads, but they're spaced out enough to where it doesn't feel like they're weighing the whole thing down.
I think you had a good word there too about how they started to include some like more interesting parts. I feel like they're more confident to explore, like, oh, we're gonna go completely silent here for a second, and that sort of stuff. Or the bass is just gonna lead here alone. Cool. All right. And 5 years go by. We wait 5 years. It's COVID now, and Brain Pain comes out, which we all had during COVID.
Yeah.
And for me, it has some nice ideas, but it mostly falls flat, to be honest with you. And I'm not normally a negative guy. I put it in my 5 slot, just above It's Our Time. I feel like I'd rather listen to almost any other 4 Year Strong record than this one. I think for me, I feel like it feels a little more directionless. Like they felt like they had to keep making music in the same style because we're 4 Year Strong, this is what we do, but it didn't have the same fire. Like some of the songs just felt a little aimless. I will say though, with that in mind, they do have some bangers. The bookends of the record and the title track itself are really good. I also like Talking Myself in Circles. 4 solid 4 Year Strong classics to me. But just that back half, like, is it 17 and
I like that one.
Mouthful of Dirt, Be Good When I'm Gone. I mean, like, again, I don't hate any of it. I'm not like anti it. I don't think it's bad.
Yeah.
But like, it just is sort of like, okay, sure, we're doing this. All right, yeah. After 5 years, I would have wanted another 4 Year Strong, the record that is. Yeah.
I really like this album. This is one of the few albums where I listened to it like as it came out, or pretty close. And and I listened to it quite a bit, but even before this podcast. And I liked that it felt like they were becoming more mature, but they weren't getting boring. You still had a bunch of really crushing heavy stuff. There's like breakdowns on here that sound like they wouldn't be out of place on like a Gojira album. Not the whole song, but like particular guitar parts.
Yeah.
It's like this kind of like almost like atonal, kind of like weird rhythmic kind of thing, and then it goes into something a little more pop punky. I can kind of understand your thoughts. You're understandable. You're just wrong about this one. No, but I really.
The public opinion, I think, is on your side.
Yeah, I really like it. All of the songs are catchy. I can remember all of them. We have some faster stuff. The mid-tempo stuff doesn't drag. The only thing I would take out would be, I would say it doesn't have any kind of fast, angry song like Enemy of the World or Tonight We Feel Alive. And I would have rather had that instead of this ballad that I'm sure made the guy feel good because he wrote it about his child, but it was just like, maybe you feel differently as a father listening to it, but to me it was Be Good When I'm Gone was like, okay, this is not interesting to me. It might be meaningful for you, but I don't feel like it's an interesting subject to write about.
Sure. Like, I'd rather have it, like, as a single, just like a one-off, like, oh, this is for my kid.
Yeah.
And not part of this record, yeah.
Yeah, because, again, I don't feel like there was a whole lot of, like, drama. I don't know. I feel like it could almost be like a country song. But it's like, all right, this is a rock record. We need to sing about stuff that rocks, and we need to, like do some music that rocks. Get rid of these 2 ballads and put 2 like heavy, angry songs in there, and this would be perfect. But I have this. Yeah. I'll have to just think about this one when we get to the end, because I put this one pretty much neck and neck with
Enemy or Rise.
No, not Rise. The Enemy of the World.
Wow.
because it's like Enemy of the World. I think it has a better front to back flow to it, but this one doesn't have that kind of sing-songy, almost Radio Disney, a little too poppy feel that Enemy of the World sometimes has for me.
Well, that leads us to Analysis Paralysis, which has just come out this last year, and I struggled to place it because everything else has like been so ingrained for me that I feel like there's recency bias here. But I'm gonna go ahead. I'll put it in my 2 slot because this is probably our most diverse rating so far. Do you think so?
Maybe so, which is weird because
like where we just like are flopping on everything. I felt like it breathes fresh air into the sound. So kind of the same thing. The issues I was having with Brain Pain, right? Like, yeah, I like it, but I've heard it, right? And so like, you're now 20 years into your career. Are you still doing the same shtick? Have you outgrown it? They go, we're gonna try something a little new and see if it works. And for most of the time, I think it does. I think songs like Uncooked, which is basically like a Turnstile song, super fun. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
I wanna see you burn. It's just
now
like
I hate Turnstile by proxy.
Have you never heard them before?
I've heard a little bit of Turnstile.
I only like their last record, but they opened for Blink, so I checked them out. Aftermath, Afterthought, I think opens the album in an excellent way. The way that first breakdown is mixed is amazing. I think it just sounds like you are on a cliff all of a sudden. Like there's a mountain before you. That's how it takes me there. I'll say they're more sweary than usual. I mean, maybe at least on the lead single, Dead End Friend, which I didn't need. And songs that took me a while. I would be curious to know how many times you've listened to it, because like songs like Daddy of Mine took me a few listens to get. It feels like the first time I'm like, oh, are you singing out of key intentionally, or I don't quite hear this, but it just, everything ended up working for me. My last thought will be on, or my last call out, I guess you'd call it, would be like Roller Coaster. How they've just punched up the distortion so high on the guitars that they're like making sounds I don't even know how to create. The do you know what I'm talking about with the yeah. I think Dan did an AMA and he was talking about how they got that sound, and it was just like, yeah, we just kept crunching it more and more. Anyways, to me, I guess it makes sense. Is there more of a through line between in some way, shape, or form in this record and then Enemy of the World and Brain Pain might seem more closely related as well? Do you think? For me, that I like those two,
because this one,
like those two.
Because this one, in some way, shape, or form, are both of them trying to sell out.
This is a sellout album to you?
This is a sellout.
Who are they selling out to?
They're trying to get on like some kind of like Spotify playlist or like a TikTok. I mean, that's how you sell out these days.
I feel like the angrier and gnarlier you sound, the farther away you move from TikTok generally. But right?
Don't you want to be angry and gnarly? This is a pop record.
Whoa.
It sucks to fall in love. Is that an angry and gnarly sound? That sounds like a Halsey song.
Okay, yeah. As we've already acknowledged with any 4 Year Strong record, on the back half, there's a couple that they're like, all right, well, just gotta check this out.
Yeah, and on the front half, there's like 5 that are awful too. Okay, I'll go ahead. So I'll preface it.
Oh, and maybe it's me, is Poppy, yeah.
So I'll preface this. I think we have different philosophies of like what a band should do as they like grow and evolve, and which I think are revealing it in this kind of different opinion. Because I'm of the opinion that like if you found your sound, you should stick there and work on variations of that, and work on kind of turning that into a hard gem-like flame. And I think you're more of the opinion that once a band has found something, they should move on to something new. In general, does that sound accurate, or maybe just in this case?
Yeah, well, I'm not opposed to it. I think that I've found that as long as it's good, I like it. Well, sorry, that sounds like pretentious or something. I just mean like, I don't care which path the band takes as long as it feels maybe sincere. or I would say like a band like A Day to Remember is a band that I think has outgrown their sound. Maybe we could save that for another thing, or maybe I've just outgrown them, which is weird because I typically don't. And then there's bands that like Linkin Park who had a perfect sound and then went on and did a bunch of different things, but I ended up being like, okay, I see what you're doing. I guess I need to find an example of a band that stayed the same that I also like. I can't think of.
See my example.
The problem is there's not that many bands that stay the same anymore.
Yeah. See, my problem is I would rather bands be more like, you know, AC/DC, where you find that one sound, and then since you're the best at it, you stick with it and just try to do as much with it as possible instead of branching out. Because I feel like, for me at least, most times when bands branch out after they've kind of found their signature sound, they don't do as well. Anyway, that's kind of a meta point. My object level point here is that I really don't like this record. This feels like, I talked about this on the Sum episode, but this feels like the Skinwalker album, where it's like, you know, you have the band interview and they're all sitting there with like this kind of like, hello, we are 4 years strong, you know, and then the drummer is in the back, you know, blinking the word torture in Morse code. It feels like kind of 4 years strong sound awkwardly grafted onto pop trends of the past 5 or 10 years. Breakdowns that are just feel like shoehorned into songs because we're 4 years strong. We have to do a breakdown, even though we really didn't have any on the last 2 records. Here's our 4 years strong patented breakdown. What kind of helped explain this for me is I don't usually do a lot of research into like what's going on with the band and stuff. It's not stuff I'm particularly interested in. I usually like to kind of get it with fresh ears. But on the Spotify bio, it said that when they came into the studio for this one, they didn't have any ideas for it. And to me, what it sounds like is that the producer probably wrote all the songs. Probably had a very heavy hand in the composition, which happens all the time. You know, bands won't admit it. Because this is like a dirty secret of the music industry, but a lot of times producers will play tracks on the albums when like the bass player's too drunk to do stuff. They'll write songs, they'll come up with the whole shebang, and they don't get officially credited for it all the time. That's my theory about what happened here and why it sounds so poppy and like playlist friendly. I will say, if their aim was like, all right, we're old and we need to make money for our kids' college, I'm totally fine with that. Like, I don't mind bands selling out if, like, that's the actual, like, point is to get more money, because welcome to real life. You can't pay for stuff with sincerity. But if it's a commercial product, I have the right to say I don't like it, and this just, it feels very trendy, very poppy, and soulless to me. It even has AI art on the cover, and, like, which is hideous. And then, like, the one thing...
Is it AI?
Yeah, I think it was AI and then edited with some stuff, but it's like not an original photo.
It's not a photo.
It's not a real thing that's being pictured there. And then the one thing I'll say about this, last thing I'll say, is that there's so many effects on the vocals in this. It's almost as bad as that latest Blink album. Like, there's like every song has this like distortion effect on the vocals, and then there's like a bunch of chorus too. And like I don't mind having effects on vocals. Old. What's that?
Yeah. Well, they're starting to get old.
But are they? They're what, in their 40s? Like,
well, for the style of singing, they do.
Yeah, but well, are they though? Because there are plenty of other bands. Like, I know you got to punch stuff up in the studio, but they're adding like grit and distortion onto just not onto like there's that little bit in Tonight We Feel Alive where it's like, I won't stand for this, and then it's got the And it's like every line in this sounds like that. It feels like, you know, like the phrase icing on the cake. It feels like going to a wedding and there's icing on the cake. And then there's also like icing on those little ham sandwiches and stuff. And there's icing on everything. And it's like, again, I don't mind punching up the vocals a bit in a way that feels natural. But I know there are plenty of other bands in this age range that are still able to sing stuff. It didn't sound like their screams or anything, or like their voice is getting weaker. It just sounds like, again, this was kind of a trendy thing to put all these effects on. I'm biased because I'm a metal fan, and those guys like sing incredibly up until like their 70s. Like what's his name? Not Bruce Dickinson. The guy from Judas Priest is still like hitting these like insanely high notes, at least in the studio. Anyway, so yeah, I did not like this record at all. Your mileage may vary, but I hope they made a lot of money off of it.
Where did you put it?
At the very bottom.
Well, this is just like Blink then, like a return that I really love and you hate.
I feel like
this is like almost every band.
Yes,
wait, isn't like every band's most recent album you hate? Heaven and Hell you hated.
I didn't hate
Danger
Heaven
Days.
and Hell, but I didn't. Well, I think part of it is because I really don't like a lot of modern rock production trends, which I feel like
there.
They make rock feel more like it either feels way too poppy in a bad way, or it feels like the guitars especially are so processed and the drums are processed. I feel like I'm listening to
the drums. I hate the drums. Yeah.
I'm listening to some new genre of like electronic music, which would be fine, I guess, if it was marketed that way. But to have it marketed as rock, you know, and that's my frame of reference for listening to it. It feels very soulless, and again, I'm not against, you know, having production need the pop. It needs to make some of the stuff kind of feel nicer and brighter. I'm not against bands being poppy in terms of having catchy melodies, because 4 Year Strong has always been that way. But it feels like overkill on this one and on a lot of bands' more recent records.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you that. And going back and looking at the track listing, it's funny because I feel like I see some of your points about the poppiness. I think that we each just honed in on different songs and like attributed the style of the record for that, right? Like, do you think there are some heavy songs on this, or no? Not like, do you think none at all?
Well, I didn't say they're still heavy. There's still some heavy songs.
Yeah.
Daddy of Mine was heavy and stuff. It wasn't that they stopped being heavy. It's that their whole sound changed. A lot of the breakdowns feel very obviously telegraphed in a way that they didn't feel in earlier albums. Like it'd be like, here's the breakdown.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guitar parts feel very simplistic compared to the previous album. So I think just overall, I didn't care for it. I did try to give it a chance, listen to it several times, but it's just not my thing.
Yeah. Well, that's all you can do. Give it a shot. This is absolutely our most diverse ranking.
Which is weird because I feel like we both really like almost all the albums.
Yeah. We do. It's probably a credit to them, right? That we can have such a fandom of them that we feel like is equal. We'd go see them live multiple times.
Yeah.
But we also digest them very differently. Yeah.
Well, it is hard to rank this one because other than the last album, there's none that really like stand like they're all so close together in quality. Even in some way, shape, or form, which I didn't like as much. Like, I think, you know, each individual song is equal to anything on the other records.
Did you like Some Will Like This, Some of You Won't?
No. I didn't even listen to that whole thing. I don't like acoustic versions of stuff for the most part. In no particular order, I think it must really suck to be 4 Year Strong right now. Off of Enemy of the World, definitely go down in history off of 4 Year Strong. Off of Brain Pain, I would probably... Oh man, they're all so good. Probably Learn to Love the Lie, that's what, 3? I'll grab another one off of... No, you know what? I'll do a wild card, and I'll say Go Long Dad. Because it's a really good encapsulation of that kind of, you know, amateurish emo sound from that time period. And then finally, maybe my favorite one, Heroes Get Remembered, Legends Never Die, off of Rise or Die Trying. But very hard to pick one. They have a lot of standout songs. It's not one of those bands where just like you know, one song rises above the rest on an album because they're all so strong.
One song rises or dies trying.
Because they're also 4 years strong. Okay, that was really bad.
All right, so I feel like, if I'm choosing 5 favorites, like if I could only save 5 4 Year Strong songs, I'd have to go Heroes. Can't remember, Legends Never Die, Maniac, Rise or Die Trying, or Rise or Die, I guess, Rod. This is so tough. Brain Pain. The song, obviously, not the album. Probably. Did I say Wasting Time yet? I have to choose Wasting Time, even though it's overplayed. But it's for a good reason. My wife's singing it now. And I'll go The Sound of Your Heart. But it's tough, yeah. They almost always are when we do these bands that we really love.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's a good wrap on 4 Year Strong. I think we at the end when we should we should make the list of our bands. So we select them where they're probably in our third or fourth slot.
Yeah.
For you, they're probably higher.
Yeah, for me, let's see, how many have we done so far? We've done Blink,
I'm trying to think. Blink,
MCR,
Fall Out Boy, MCR.
We didn't do Fall Out Boy.
We didn't do Fall Out Boy?
No.
We totally haven't done Fall Out Boy.
We've had a long gap between albums.
We did Blink, some, MCR, Me Without You.
Me Without You. Okay. Yeah, definitely. In terms of discographies, like I'd put like probably some at the top. Maybe 4 Year Strong after them. Me Without You. Probably Blink and then MCR. Again, hard to say because like MCR, I only really like one album by them, but I like it a whole lot. And as opposed to, I'm probably more likely to go back and listen to, Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge than I would be to Me Without You's stuff that I burned out on, even though I think Me Without You's better. So again, there's some subjective elements to this as well. But so far nobody has taken the crown from some for just the best front to back discography. I think they're individual albums that are better than stuff some has done.
Well, then should we just do the Joey and Tyler project next? I mean,
that's true. Yeah. I don't know. I think we want to do the greatest band to ever exist in the world.
We have to build to that.
Yeah, we gotta build up to that one. And we missed like the April Fool's deadline for doing that.
That's right. Well, we didn't miss 2026.
That's true. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Bye, listeners.